Welcome to my channel, where every story comes to life. Dive into captivating narratives that spark your imagination. Let's start today, new narrative story. I never saw it coming. No one does, really. You go through life thinking you've done everything right, that love is enough to sustain a marriage. But then life throws a curveball, and in a matter of moments, the world you once knew crumbles. My name is James Mitchell, and I'm 39. I grew up in Melbourne, a city known for its art, culture, and beaches. I spent most of my youth on the coast, surfing and dreaming big. My ambition was clear early on. I wanted to be a lawyer, a successful one. I envisioned myself wearing sharp suits, closing deals in high-rise boardrooms, and building a life most could only dream of. It was during my university days in Sydney that I met Sophie. She was the kind of woman you couldn't take your eyes off of. Her beauty was captivating, yes, but it was her charm that truly set her apart. She was 22, a couple of years younger than me, and studying marketing. Back then, social media was just starting to bloom, and Sophie was ahead of the curve. She saw potential where most people saw nothing more than a trend. I was drawn to her ambition, her drive, and that spark she had. We started dating soon after meeting. It was electric. We'd spend our weekends exploring Sydney, going on road trips up and down the coast. It felt like the kind of love people write songs about. I was head over heels for her, and she for me. At least, that's what I believed. After we graduated, Sophie began building a career as a social media influencer, and I landed a job at a top law firm. Everything was falling into place. Within a couple of years, we were married in a lavish ceremony overlooking Sydney Harbor, with the Opera House as our backdrop. Friends, family, colleagues, it seemed like the whole world was celebrating us. I was thriving at work, quickly rising through the ranks. Sophie's online presence was growing too. She was constantly posting about our lives, our fancy vacations, our new house in Melbourne, and the luxurious dinners we shared. I won't lie, at first I loved it. I loved how proud she was of what we'd built together, and I loved showing the world that we had it all. But that's the thing with appearances. They can be deceiving. It wasn't long after our 10-year anniversary that I noticed a change in Sophie. Her posts became more about her and less about us. The dinners we used to share became photo ops, with her more focused on getting the perfect shot than enjoying the meal. She started traveling more, meeting up with other influencers and attending glamorous events in Sydney, Brisbane, and even overseas. I wasn't concerned at first. Sophie had always been ambitious, and I supported her career. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? I was working long hours, trying to make partner at the firm, so it wasn't until later that I realized how distant she had become. I'd come home to find her glued to her phone, her smile never quite reaching her eyes anymore. Our conversations dwindled. We used to talk about everything, our dreams, our future. Now we barely spoke. One evening, I came home to find Sophie sitting at the dining table, her face illuminated by the glow of her phone. Her usual radiance seemed dimmer, her body language tense. I asked her about her day, trying to engage her in conversation, but her responses were clipped, distant. "Just busy with work," she said, barely looking up. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just one of those days. But those days became more frequent. Soon they became the norm. I tried to fix things, planned a surprise trip for the two of us to Bali, a place we both loved. She seemed excited at first, but when we arrived, I felt like I was traveling alone. She was constantly on her phone, posting, commenting, scrolling. One night, after a day filled with nothing but silence between us, I asked her what was going on. "Is everything okay, Soph? You've been distant." She didn't answer right away, just kept scrolling through her phone. "James," she finally said, I don't know. I feel like I need more." "More? More of what?" I asked, my heart already sinking. More excitement, more adventure. Our life, it's just predictable. I was stunned. Predictable. Our life had been one adventure after another. At least I thought so. I tried to reason with her, reminding her of all the things we'd done together, the life we'd built. But deep down, I knew something was wrong, something I couldn't fix. And then, one day, everything changed. It was a Friday afternoon. I had just finished a long day at work and was looking forward to a quiet evening at home. Sophie had been acting strange for weeks, but I kept telling myself it was just a rough patch. Every couple goes through them, right? But that night, I came home to an empty house. Sophie's car wasn't in the driveway, and the lights were off. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried not to panic, convincing myself that she was probably just out with friends. But then, something compelled me to check her Instagram. There it was, a post from Sophie, tagged at a luxury resort in Brisbane. And next to her, arm around her waist, was Nathan Campbell. A man I'd never met but had heard of. Nathan was a successful real estate developer, tall, handsome, charismatic. He had the kind of wealth that made my career in law look modest. At first, I didn't want to believe it. Maybe it was just business, I thought. Maybe she was working with him on a project. But deep down, I knew. You don't put your arm around someone like that for business. I called her again, but no answer. I texted her, asking where she was, but the message was left on read. The silence was deafening. The following days were a blur. I felt like my world had been ripped out from under me. How could she do this? How could she throw away everything we had for a man she barely knew? I confronted her when she finally came home a few days later, looking tanned and radiant as if nothing had happened. "Sophie, what the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. She didn't even try to deny it. "I'm sorry, James," she said, her voice cold and distant. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way, but I'm not happy anymore. Nathan, he makes me feel alive. Our life, it's not enough for me." "Not enough?" I repeated, incredulous. "We've built an entire life together, Sophie, a marriage, a future, and you're just going to throw it away for some guy you barely know?" "I'm sorry," she said again, but the words felt hollow. "I didn't want to hurt you, but I need more. I've outgrown us." Outgrown. The word stung like a slap to the face. I stood there, speechless, as she packed her things. Within a week, she had moved out and into Nathan's penthouse in Brisbane. The months after Sophie left were some of the darkest of my life. I felt like a failure. My marriage had crumbled, my wife had left me for another man, and I was left with nothing but the shattered pieces of the life we had built together. But something strange happened in the midst of all that pain. I started to heal. At first, I focused on work. I poured myself into my job, working long hours and pushing myself harder than ever before. My efforts paid off. Within 6 months, I made partner at the firm, a goal I had been working towards for years. But success at work wasn't enough to fill the void that Sophie had left behind. So I started taking care of myself in other ways. I went back to surfing, something I hadn't done in years. I reconnected with old friends and started spending more time with my family. I even began dating again, cautiously at first, but slowly opening myself up to the possibility of finding love again. And then, one day, something amazing happened. I realized I was happy, truly happy, not just surviving, but thriving. Meanwhile, Sophie and Nathan's relationship was not the fairy tale she had imagined. From what I heard through mutual friends and the occasional social media post, their perfect life was crumbling. Nathan's business hit a rough patch, and their lavish lifestyle was starting to catch up with them. Sophie, who had once been the picture of confidence and success, was now struggling to keep up the facade. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. It wasn't that I wanted Sophie to suffer, but there was something poetic about the way things had turned out. She had left me, thinking the grass was greener on the other side, only to find that it wasn't. And me? I was doing better than ever. It's been 2 years since Sophie left. I've built a life for myself that I'm proud of, a life filled with joy, success, and fulfillment. I'm not the same person I was when she walked out the door, and for that, I'm grateful. I've learned that life doesn't always go the way you plan, but sometimes that's a good thing. Sophie's betrayal was painful, but it pushed me to grow in ways I never would have otherwise. It forced me to confront my weaknesses, to rebuild my self-esteem, and to discover what truly makes me happy. As for Sophie and Nathan, they're still together, but from what I hear, their relationship is far from perfect. They're struggling to maintain the image they've created, but the cracks are starting to show. And me, I'm free. Free from the toxic relationship I once thought was my future. Free to live the life I've always wanted. Thank you for watching my story of betrayal, resilience, and growth. Have you ever been in a situation where life didn't turn out the way you expected, but ended up being even better? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Let's keep the conversation going.